Welcome to week 7, A Moment for Yourself with Linda Ty. This week, we'll look at actions of attachment. So, actions of attachment, this is the work of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, and the developmental actions of attachment are reach, grasp, pull, and have. And have is known in the somatic field also as yielding, meaning that we can relax while having. So instead of reach, grasp, pull, have, it's have or have, yeah? And healthy development of these actions of attachment allows us to share, to let go, as well as to grieve. So once again, these developmental actions of attachment are reach, grasp, pull, and have. And when we look at relationship to relationship, this comprises of our relationship to needing, our relationship to asking, our relationship to giving, our relationship to receiving, and our relationship to having. And we all learned explicitly and implicitly, overtly and covertly during our developmental years the following messages about what it's okay to need and what it's not okay to need, what it's okay to ask for and what it's not okay to ask for, what it's okay to give, what it's not okay to give, what it's okay to receive, what it's not okay to receive, what it is okay to have and what is not okay to have. And so from this, we may have experienced enough safety and connection to engage in the interpersonal rhythms of expression in reciprocity. However, in order to maintain a connection with the caregivers in our early lives, many of us learn to inhibit or have fearful relationships to certain developmental actions of attachment. We may have perhaps learned the patterns of disconnection or self-protection. We may have learned perhaps a fearful relationship to our own needs, a fearful relationship to asking, to giving, to receiving, and to having, and to letting go, which may have been adaptive at the time, but no longer serves us anymore. Or we may perhaps flip-flop back and forth between one extreme and the other extreme in regards to our needs, asking, giving, receiving, having. Yeah. And then overlaid on top of that, engaging in these interpersonal rhythms of expression in reciprocity becomes truncated, self-protected, fearful, or imbalanced. And we can approach this entire conversation cognitively, so from the top down, but we can also approach this conversation and these curiosities somatically, so from the bottom up, from the body up. And so by exploring these actions of attachment with curiosity, we may perhaps gain some insight into missing relational experiences that carry forth into our current relationships. So it's actually a really big conversation. And we'll have some little experiments today that may elicit some insight for you. And so a lot of this, because there are a lot of therapists and clinicians on this call, some of this is to offer you the opportunity to have the experience of the powerfulness of bottom-up work rather than top-down work. But before we start stepping towards these stepping towards these experiments, let's just have a conversation about how we can resource ourselves so that we can safely engage in these experiments. Interpersonal trauma and relational wounding replaces patterns of connection with patterns of protection and patterns of disconnection. And so some of these experiments can actually bring up some stuff for us. Some of you may feel well resourced enough to be able to step towards discomfort that you notice in real time and be able to hold a space of curiosity and openness around that. Some of you may wish to place a hand on the heart or a hand on the belly or some other gesture of resourcing that then allows you to step towards things that may bring up discomfort for you. And some of you are also resourced by knowing that we're behind a computer screen. I can't see you. And none of the participants can see each other. And so there may be some safety in that for you as well. While at the same time knowing that we're all on this call together. It's also worthwhile, as we engage in these experiments, to notice reflexive movements or internal shifts that happen during each of these experiments. And for some of us, the internal shift may actually be going cognitive, right? Leaving the body, going into the head. Be curious about what you notice. And that's the invitation that I hold for all of us around these experiments, is to be curious about what you notice in your own internal experience. So reach, grasp, pull, and have. Let's go to the letting go end of the spectrum. So I invite you to grab an object that's in your environment. So a pen or a piece of stationery, something somewhat neutral. And I invite you to hold this pen and to imbue the pen or the object that you've got in your hands with positive qualities. To express some gratitude and appreciation towards this object that allows me to go through the world knowing that I have something that's available to me that's a tool. Perhaps you may want to pet it or to hold it with affection. And to allow this appreciation for this object to settle into your body. And what we'll do now is we'll have the experiment of noticing what happens inside your body when you let go of this object. And we'll do it twice, one with your dominant hand and one with your non-dominant hand. So coming back to internal noticing, a space of appreciation. And with your dominant hand, I invite you to reach out from your body with this object, which may be easier for some of us than others. And then to notice what it's like for you to move it away from you. And then to let go of it. And to notice what happens inside after you've let go of it. Take a moment to pause and be curious about your relationship to the experience and the experiment of moving something away from you with your dominant hand and letting go. Switch to your non-dominant hand and hold that object close to you. Appreciate the object and take this appreciation for this object into your body. And then as you are ready, notice what happens inside as you begin to move this object away from your midline, away from your torso, to let go of the object, knowing that your experience is your experience, and to be curious about what's going on for you. And then if you haven't let go yet, if it's okay for you to let go, see what it's like to let go of the object, if it's okay to let go of the object. And notice what happens in the space after you've let go of the object. And then a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly, or whatever feels appropriate for you in this moment. So part of somatic therapies is the meaning making that happens within the organization of your experience. And this is something that you can work with and through with a somatic therapist, and I leave that as an invitation for you. But it's curious, is it not? The simplicity of slowing down the action of having and letting in and then letting go. If you like, you may wish to just shake that off. And if you like, you may wish to move towards the experiment of reaching. Yeah. And this can bring up a lot of stuff for many of us, because when we look at these developmental actions of attachment, right, reaching, grasping, pulling, and having, there are many ways to reach. A lot of the individuals that I work with have an inhibited reach response. So your reaching may look something like this, or like this, or it may be the total opposite, which is taking. Yeah. And so let's just sort of shake out of the body and just experiment in quick ways, of various ways that we can reach. It can be reaching with, I call it the T-Rex arms. Your T-Rex is obviously reptilian and not mammalian. And there's reaching like this. And then there's the enlightened T-Rex reaching like this. Yeah, with the eye gaze down, perhaps the eye gaze up. Yeah. And we can also reach with the eyes, and we can reach with the mouth. Yeah. We can reach with the forearms extended, with the arms in. We can reach with arms out. We can reach with arms reaching up while looking down. Or perhaps the head lifts with the eyes closed. Perhaps the eyes look. Perhaps we reach with the mouth as well. Check that out. We can also reach in a resourced way. Some of you may consider this to be a self-protected way. I call this resourced. So you can have a hand on the heart or a hand on the belly, whatever feels okay with you. And then the other hand reaches. And notice if you're able to experience more capacity to reach when there's a hand that's resourcing the body. Yeah. Notice if there's more freedom of movement or of reaching, the action of reaching, when there's a resource there. Yeah. So the experiment that we'll do now is we will very, very slowly move from here, the T-Rex reaching, to here, the enlightened T-Rex, to reaching up. And then with the eyes closed. And then if it's okay, you can try with the eyes open, and then perhaps reaching with the mouth as well. Yeah. But we'll break it down into itty bitty, bitty, bitty pieces and slow it right down. And you may perhaps reach a point of discomfort with this reach response. Many people reach the discomfort here or perhaps here. And it's okay to stop there. Yeah. It's okay to resource yourself by looking down, or perhaps by having a hand to the heart, or perhaps by pulling back just a little bit. And then continuing on with looking up, tilting up with the head, and then looking up with the eyes, and then reaching with the mouth. But I will pause us, right, at each of these stages so that you can actually choose for yourself what feels appropriate for you in the moment. Yeah. So big deep breath. Yeah. And perhaps close your eyes if that feels okay with you, perhaps tuning within, perhaps starting from a resource place. And then if you like, you can start with a T-Rex reaching, with the eyes down. And then ever so slowly, you can perhaps experiment with tilting the head up. Perhaps experiment with slowly lifting the hands so that they're palm up. And if the eye gaze comes back down, that's okay. That's your body resourcing. Perhaps looking up, perhaps looking away. Noticing where your breath is at and noticing where you are in relationship to your body. And then if it's okay with you, perhaps to slowly begin to extend the reach. Noticing the breath, noticing if the breath gets caught as the arms begin to extend. Noticing if the body resources by the eyes closing or the head tilting back down. And knowing that it's okay to pause wherever that edge is for you in terms of the arms reaching. And then wherever you've paused, allow the eye gaze to come down so that you're resourced. Perhaps the arm comes in and a hand is on the upper torso or the lower torso as a form of resourcing. And then if you wish to continue, you can experiment with tilting the head up and doing this ever so slowly, noticing what comes up for you as you begin to tilt the head up. And pausing and resourcing yourself in the ways that feel appropriate. If it feels appropriate for you, you may wish to open your eyes and to orient your eyes forward and then up. And as you orient your eyes, noticing if that tilt in the head shifts, or noticing if the breath shifts the expression in the torso, noticing any reflexive movements that arise. And then if it's okay with you, perhaps experiment with reaching with the mouth and noticing what comes up for you. Knowing that you can resource yourself and that your body does resource yourself by reflexively coming out of this. And then if you like, you can practice some curiosity as well as distress tolerance by moving towards the edge of that discomfort and then backing away ever so slowly. And then moving towards slowly. And then backing away ever so slowly. Knowing that it is okay to resource yourself Mm. And then coming back to yourself, both hands on the upper torso, or a hand on the upper, a hand on the lower, or perhaps a gesture of self-holding. Mm. And letting it be okay to notice whatever it is that came up for you with curiosity. Yeah. It is very common to have a truncated reach response. You know, this truncated attachment cry that we began to unpack last week isn't just the truncated vocalization. It's also the reach with the hands, the reach with the eyes, the reach with the mouth. Yeah. And we can begin to slowly inhabit those responses as a way of beginning to unpack from the bottom up, so that we can then bring in the corrective emotional experience for ourselves. Because for many of us, we relive a loop of this truncated reaching, yeah, or this truncated attachment cry, reaching with the voice, or this truncated reaching with the eyes over and over, or perhaps with the mouth, yeah, perhaps through eating or wanting nourishment, yeah. Be curious about that, and if it's curious for you, you can contact a somatic therapist in your area. Ways of resourcing this truncated reach response. And here is how I notice this in my life. I get home from work and I want to reach for my partner and tell him everything about my day. And I'm telling him about my day, he's telling me about his day, and there's this thing that doesn't quite happen. And so I close my eyes, I reach for him as he's standing there static, and I feel him there. And then I pull myself towards him. I take that big, deep breath, and then I kind of pat him down, not in a creepy way, but in a way that says, yes, you're there. Yeah. And that is one way that we can resource ourselves with others for this truncated reach response. We will unpack this some more in next week's, our final session, where we can combine some of these actions of attachment in ways that can begin to fulfill them in ways that are resourcing for us, so that we can begin to move through our days with the capacity to self-regulate. Yeah. But in the meantime, you can reach for a table and feel the support of it beneath your body, and then pull yourself towards the table and take in the support of the table beneath your body. And there's typically a big deep breath that follows, and we're able to be here with ourselves in the ways that we need. Until next week, be well and take care of yourself.